If you are the senior product manager, you go in for the interview, you would say this. Hi everyone, this is Dr. Nancy Lee. I want Product Manager Accelerator, helping thousands of product managers landing the dream job offer in FAANG companies and unicorn startup.
Today, we are talking about the product design round. What is the difference between the mid-level and the senior level, and exactly what to say to pass interviews at that level? Specifically, this conversation is about designing Uber for people with disabilities. Okay, Doc, what's the biggest difference to you between the levels in this interview?
So the number one thing jump out of my head is the senior product manager knows how to slice a problem based on the two-sided marketplace.
Two-sided marketplace. Okay, how do they slice the problem?
Senior product manager is going to slice it based on Uber drivers and Uber riders. Now, junior product managers or middle-level product managers is going to design everything end-to-end and also didn't think about the other side of the marketplace. They probably only think about the riders and ignore the drivers completely. Let me give you an example. For junior product manager, they're going to do this. They said, okay, great. Design Uber app for people with disabilities. Let me start to think about the end-to-end experience. How do they order the app, pick up the app, and directly match with the Uber drivers, everything end-to-end. Within trying to do that within 45 minutes, senior product manager is going to say this. Let's work on the biggest pain point first and biggest problem. If I'm extra time, we're going to work on other problems within this 45 minutes design case.
Okay. Scoping the problem. How do senior candidates do that differently than mid-level candidates?
Yeah, actually, scoping the problem is number one differentiated between senior and non-senior. Lots of people just failed in the interview within 1 minute by asking the wrong question. For example, junior product managers always go out, ask questions like, oh, design Uber app with people with disabilities. What kind of disabilities do you mean? Blind people? Oh, I can go ahead to design for blind people. However, senior product managers always go out saying that, you know what? Wow, this is a very big case. Uber's mission is actually ignite opportunity by setting people in motion. And in this entire world of disabilities, I'm imagine all different type of disabilities will be impacted by this new challenges, not able to interact with Uber app. In this specific case, I assume we're going to take a look at the entire market first and then really think about which sub-customer segmentation we're going to prioritize.
Don't rush into your scoping of the app, basically. Go from wide to narrow.
Yeah, exactly. And also ask a question to the interviewer regarding your approach going very wide and narrow and ask if it is okay. Or do you have any additional tips and guidance you want to give it to me?
Nancy, is it a senior level candidate action in an interview to say, hey, am I going in the right direction? Like, is that too simple of a question to you?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's a too simple question. I think it's a very smart question to ask because especially at the beginning, when you ask the clarifying questions up front, you make a lot of assumptions. As I mentioned, you need to make it wide, right? Whenever you make a wide assumption, you need to check in with the interviewer saying that, am I on the right track? Thinking wide on top, right? And maybe interviewer, no, only design it for like blind people, like cut off everything. It's okay. That's why you check in because we don't want candidate just directly like only go for one direction. And what if the interviewer want to go broad, especially for very senior people, for like a fan level, like Meta L7, those kind of level of like interviewing?
I guess the question that I have is that if I am L7 Meta level PM, shouldn't I be driving the interview the whole time? So is there maybe like a different way to check in with your interviewer as you get more senior? Maybe as you're less senior, maybe you ask, hey, am I going in the right direction? Maybe you ask that maybe all the time, but maybe when you're more senior, maybe you only check in after like major milestones or something like that. And maybe the way you check in is maybe different. Maybe it's not a question like, am I going in the right direction? But maybe it's a question like, let me know if you think I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah, I like it. I like your point. So I do think you need checking all the time because it's an interaction. Here's a clue from the interviewer. And however, for Meta L7 type of interviewer, the way you ask question is you state the assumptions up front, I assume, as we described earlier. And then you ask a question towards, is my assumptions correct?
What about pain points? What's the difference in how senior and mid-level candidates talk about pain points?
That's a very interesting question because I can clearly see lots of candidates fail the interview and their feedback is you don't have customer empathy. For example, some candidates, they clearly do not have customer empathy when design Uber app for people with disabilities. They will say this in the interview. Oh, I can imagine for people who are overweight, it's actually very difficult for them to get into the Uber app. If your interviewer heard this, you feel, wow, clearly no customer empathy at all. Shouldn't you thinking about the pain point from blind people perspective instead of just assuming people overweight? How come overweight is being classified as people with disabilities? This literally happened in the final round interview for one of the students I coach. Literally said this in interview, and she immediately bombed the interview.
What about the more senior level candidates? How can they, is it more just about tone, or is it about their word choice too, for how they can really show empathy here?
Senior candidate does two things. Number one, it's going to choose the right pain point for the most painful customer segmentation. And then second part is really saying in a very painful way by wearing the shoes of your customers. For example, senior candidate will say this. Clearly, among all the sub-customer segmentation we discussed earlier, there are different type of disabilities. And in this case, I like to prioritize the blind people. And I can imagine for blind people, every single day when they need to get outside or even get help, or even want to get connected and matched with another Uber drivers, how on earth they're able to find a phone and click something on the button, navigate, enter your destination, and being able to pick up the right person, not someone who is like sketchy. The whole world is completely different for people who are blind. So therefore, we definitely need to focus on blind people and also solve their biggest pain point.
You got to kind of step out of the interview mode for a second and paint a picture for the interviewer almost of this person's life for like just a couple of seconds, but just to show that you get it. You mentioned picking the most important pain points. And there's a difference between how many pain points mid-level and senior PMs will approach. What's your take on that?
3 is a golden number in any product management interviews.
Nice.
I highly recommend everyone pick up top 3 pain point, the most painful pain point, instead of have a laundry list of 10 different pain points. For example, junior product managers will be like, oh, let me think about the end-to-end process for blind people using the app. Step number 1, order the app. Step number 2, so basically they did everything end-to-end. And then you come out with laundry list of 20 different things. If you are the senior product manager, you go in for the interview, you would say this. Well, I can imagine the biggest pain point for blind people is not able to interact with the app at all. Just as I mentioned, not able to put in the destination, matching with the right people, completely impossible. And the second biggest pain point is, so what? You're matched with an Uber driver. How would you be able to communicate with the Uber driver? Do you make phone call? Do you text them saying that they're late? If a phone call, how do you know you're calling the right people? How would you find out their phone numbers? So I recommend all the senior product managers out there only give top 3 the most painful pain point and describe it with full customer empathy.
What's important in these interviews when it comes to your decision-making process?
In creating your solutions and selecting your number 1 solutions, I see the junior candidate always just dive into their biggest ideas. They're so passionate about idea. They cannot wait to jump out of the chair. And they start to say something like this during the interview. They will say, wow, I already designed this best idea for blind people using Uber app. What if we're able to use AI to directly detect what kind of Uber apps they're going to be matched? What if we're able to use AI to directly detect what kind of drivers they're going to use and predict what kind of future destination we'll be using, and automatic, like bringing the whole crew of people serving them, it's become AI around them. So people keep going about a brilliant idea, which I do like those ideas as well. However, senior product manager who is going for Meta L7 or Amazon L6, all the very senior people out there, they were going to say the following things. Let me create the top 3 ideas. And they're going to create the top 3 ideas. When they come back, when they prioritize the ideas, they will say the following. Now we already have the top 3 ideas. I'm going to think about the top 4 factors to think about which one we need to prioritize. The top 4 factors are the effectiveness of the solution, the engineering effort, how much engineering effort it takes to build this product, and the implementation difficulty. So that maybe it's easy to build, that can solve the problem, but very hard for the end user to adopt. And number 4, which is the risk. What are the potential risks behind each of the solutions? With all the 4 factors I have laid out, I like to prioritize this AI solution. Then you describe your AI solution. So there is a methodology, a framework for you to show your thought process of prioritizing the right solution.
So wait, Why do you do that? I don't really get it.
So actually, using this framework, we're going to have a bulletproof strategy, because maybe your interviewer likes the other ideas. They hate AI, right? Different people have different opinion out there. They all have like personal opinion. They think the idea is the best. To prove that your idea is the best, once you lay out those 4 different factors, regardless, interviewers say, oh, other ideas better or not, and you show this table of prioritization for criteria saying that, yes, interviewer, I do agree with you. The other like voice call center idea is actually pretty good. However, see the chart here. So the chart itself was able to prove you in terms of, yes, some aspect in terms of ease of adoption is easy. However, the engineering effort and the human effort is really high. With the combined score, I like to prioritize the original AI idea as an example. Of course, AI may or may not stand out using this prioritization framework. I'm using AI as an example for people to leverage the very powerful bulletproof framework.
Nice. Get an unbeatable strategy. Well, that's it. That's the difference between the senior level and the mid-level for these product design interviews. I'm Kevin Landucci.
This is Dr. Nancy Lee from PMAccelerator.io.
And we will see you next time.
See you guys.